Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a good day. This is Allison from AndSewSheBegins, and today I'm going to be showing you all how to make this new coaster design for my shop. It's a great Halloween design with a ghost yelling out "boo." So if you want to know how I made it, please keep watching. Alright, so here are our materials. I have my embroidery hoop. This is a 4x4 hoop, some stabilizer, 3 pieces of fabric, 2 purple pieces, one for the front of the coaster and one for the back, and 1 smaller white piece for the ghost applique. I have some thin batting, some small scissors, and some embroidery thread. And that is everything. So I'm going to hoop up my stabilizer and bring you guys to my embroidery machine. Alright, so now I've hooped in my stabilizer, and now we're going to put it in the machine and start working on the front side of our coaster. Okay, so first I'm going to put my presser foot down, and we'll start by stitching out our placement stitch. This is so we know where to put our batting and 1 piece of purple fabric for the front of the coaster. Okay, so here you can see we've finished our placement stitch. So we know the coaster is going to be this big, and we can now add our purple fabric and our batting. So here I'm adding my batting, and then next I'm going to add my purple fabric on top of the batting, and hoop it all back into my embroidery machine. Now that we've placed our batting and fabric, it's time to put down tacking stitches so that our fabric and batting stays in place while we stitch out the rest of our design. Alright, so now you can see we've finished our tacking stitch, so now we can move on to our stipple stitches that'll create these nice swirly patterns on our coaster, kind of like fog surrounding our ghost. So as you can see, as we've put down our stipple stitches, it kind of tacks down our fabric and gets rid of the bubbling from the batting. I find that the stipple stitches really help avoid a lot of puckering in the fabric. Alright, so now we've finished the base of our coaster, we're going to start working on our ghost. We're going to start by putting some placement stitches so we know where to put our white fabric for the ghost. Okay, so now we've finished our placement stitches. We know where our ghost is going to go, so we can go ahead and put our white fabric and put down some tacking stitches to keep it in place.
Okay, finish my tacking stitch. So I'm gonna cut out around this ghost outline.
Okay, so now I've taken my embroidery hoop out of the machine and am cutting around the edges of the ghost. It's important to be really close to the edges so that when we put the satin stitches on later, none of the white fabric will show underneath. So just take your time and closely cut around the edges. And be careful not to cut any of our tacking stitches out, otherwise it'll move around as we sew it. Okay, so I've put my hoop back in the machine, and now I'm going to sew a zigzag stitch so I can tell if the edges I cut are going to be covered later on by the satin stitches. Alright, so I've finished the zigzag stitch and I'm going to take the hoop off to check if it covers all of the ghost. So as you can see here, the zigzag stitch covers all of the edges of the ghost, so we know that the satin stitches will cover the ghost and we won't have any little white threads poking through later. Alright, so now that we know that we won't have any white threads peeking through our satin stitches, we can go and stitch them out. So here you can see the machine has finished stitching out the satin stitches, and it's going to go immediately into stitching out the face of the ghost. Alright, so as you can see, the machine has finished stitching out the ghost, and next we're going to stitch out the boo underneath it. Let me bring you guys in a little bit closer so you can see the boo being stitched out. Alright, and that concludes all of the designs for the front of the coaster. So now we're going to add the back of the coaster. So we're going to put the other piece of purple fabric underneath our hoop. You could also remove the hoop to do this. I was too lazy to do so, but you just want to get that purple piece of fabric flat underneath your hoop, and then we're going to stitch some tacking stitches to keep it in place. Alright, so now that we've tacked down the back of our coaster, we're going to trim around the front and the back. So that's the purple fabric and batting on the front, and then the purple fabric on the back. So here I'm cutting around the front. I'm doing both the purple fabric and the batting at once. It is a bit tricky because there are so many layers and my scissors are so small, but just be careful and make sure you don't poke through the stabilizer or cut up the tacking stitches. And then I'm going to do the same on the back, snipping some loose threads and then closely cutting around the purple fabric. Alright, so now that we've cut out the front and the back, we're going to do a zigzag stitch to see if I cut closely enough to the edges. Alright, so now that we've finished our zigzag stitch, we can see that everything's good. The fabric will not peek out through the satin stitches, so we can go ahead and stitch out the satin stitches. This will be our last stitch in this pattern. Alright, so we've finished our project. All that's left to do is pop it out of the tearaway stabilizer. You could also just, if you're using water-soluble stabilizer, you could cut it out and spray some water on it. So I'm just going to pop it out and trim some of the loose threads I didn't do around the edge and on the boo lettering. And now we're done. Thank you to everyone who watched to the end. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And if you like this design, please feel free to check out my Etsy shop at AndSewSheBegins. Thank you.